recorded? Is this
We
also
are online.
okay? We have 1 minute, everyone. Get ready.
I'll finish my green tea then.
Pratik, we are live. Good evening, everyone. Let's see if people have joined. We have all 31, 33. Okay.
35.
Okay. Let it increase. Let more people join in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Let's see. 40. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining on time. We are still waiting for more participants to log in. And I think we'll wait for another 2 minutes and then we'll start. So we'll appreciate your patience, but keep watching, stay tuned. So happy to see all of you. Let's get
Let me
set.
check. Sit down.
Siddhant is on Zoom. Okay, he's here.
Yes.
Perfect.
Done.
Hi, Siddhant.
Hi, Mekin. Hi, Aakanksha. Hi, Ben, Pratik, and Rosie.
Welcome.
Hey, Siddhant. Nice to meet you.
Hey.
With that, good evening, everyone. Very good evening. Welcome to the Sustainable Development Goals Saturdays, discussing this time all about SDG 17, Partnership for the Goals, and what does it really mean for all of us in our local context and at the work we are doing. So this webinar series you just joined is hosted by Seedstars and AIC Raise. It's a shared alignment which both Seedstars and AIC Raise have towards impact and sustainable development goals. And let me give you a quick snapshot of what these both organizations do. Seedstars is a Swiss company. It's an investment platform headquartered in Geneva with a mission to impact people's lives in emerging markets through technology and entrepreneurship. And AIC Raise is India's first UN SDG-based incubator based in Coimbatore. It's supported by Adult Innovation Mission from the Government of India. And so thank you for your support in hosting this. AIC Raise also backs for-profit, social and environmental startups and founders who are using technology to solve some of the big social and environmental challenges. So really that alignment is what allowed us to explore how different organizations should come on board and explore larger partnerships. With that, introducing myself, I'm Anurag. I lead partnerships for Seedstars in Asia, and I enjoy building impact networks and creative, including startup communities, and nurturing entrepreneurship ecosystems in my role around in Asia. So really looking forward to this and being a community leader. What I enjoy the most is listening to inspiring people and entrepreneurs I get to work with, all the diverse thoughts and perspectives they bring, and listening to their stories and experiences of making impact, of creating, change in people's lives for to better either like in education or in health in different fields. But this is that I think honor and privilege I always have to work with these wonderful people and get to know them very personally and get to know their stories. And I thought this webinar can allow us to listen to some of those stories in context to the partnerships they build, because all of these work they do require larger partnerships to make impact in the communities they work in. With that, I would like all of you to also give them a big round of applause to the panelists who have joined me on this in this conversation you see here. So let's start with a quick introduction to begin with Aakanksha. Aakanksha is a dear friend. She works as a manager for social programs at DSM. DSM is a Forbes listed multinational, Dutch multinational, known for their purpose-led science, specialization in solutions around nutrition, health, and overall sustainable living. Pratik here right now, I think he's in Noida right now. Pratik, he's a serial entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, and in India CEO of US-based Fifth Element Group. It's a global impact management consultancy, and he gets to work with various impact startups around the world. I think I have not met anyone as much as who travels as much as Pratik does in my whole last couple of years. And Siddhant is the co-founder at Mindpiper, a mental health startup, and he's the program lead for COVID response currently. And so a beautiful story around Aakanksha, Siddhant, and Pratik is we are all part of Unleash community, and that's how we all met. And working on SDG innovation challenges almost 2.5 years ago, and that allowed us to bond and meet each other and get to know each other. So and then we started exploring how do we work with each other and explore more partnerships. So that's kind of the background. Then now we have Mekin Maheshwari. He's a serial entrepreneur and angel investor. He's the co-founder at Udyam Learning Foundation and Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship. Mekin is a gem of a person. If you start following him, the work he does, I've been following him from really outside, but really inspired by his mission of democratizing access to entrepreneurship to masses and taking it to people who don't have the opportunity. And it amazes me how, one person can be involved in so many impact projects, from like entrepreneurship to startup and mentoring individuals. So it's amazing how you're joining on board for the webinar. Thank you, Mekin. We have Rosie. Rosie is the regional manager for Seedstars and leads partnership currently globally. As I told you, Seedstars works at the cross-section of SDGs, impact, innovation, and technology around emerging markets. And Rosie and I work together now. We have been friends in community for a long time. And what inspires me about Rosie is her passion around sustainability and the climate change and impact overall. And I think a holistic understanding of the partnerships that are equally important to do it, to make a larger impact in the communities, because we know that we can't do it alone. So I think taking everyone along in this journey is what really, I think, strikes out for me. And Eben is a dear friend and a community leader working for a long time with me. He currently manages and runs AIC Raise Incubator. That's India's first UN SDG based incubator. And Eben cares deeply about the cause of SDGs. And what struck to me was when he shared with me after having a baby, how it changed his life course and made him focus on SDGs more than before, as he started reflecting on this question, what kind of world I am going to leave behind for my child? So, all of the people here have these stories to tell. And that's what inspired us to get these people together and listen to some of the work they're doing around partnerships. So with that, I think let me just quickly set the context on SDG goal 17, partnership for the goals. It's a goal set by United Nations. There is an element of partnerships which we can touch around global cooperation between countries and official development assistance that comes from different countries to support SDG 17. But I think more than that, what I would like to focus here to know the stories around how each of these individuals and the work they are doing at their organizations are leveraging this goal and really prioritizing their activities around SDG 17. Whether it's sharing ideas and fostering innovation, collaborating with organizations to work on each other's strengths. And basically, if you look at the world is right now more interconnected than ever. You see how we have all been affected by the COVID, but still we are able to leverage the technology and these resources to continue doing what we're doing and still finding out ways to not leave anyone behind. With that, I think I want to quote, one of the big things, Steve Case, here, the American entrepreneur and investor and the former chairman of AOL, he highlighted in his book, The Third Wave, which talks about entrepreneurs' vision of the future. He said, he quoted that, so we believe the strategic alliances and partnerships were so critical, and we did that for years as part of the initiatives he started. And he really recognized that what we all need to make an impact is really bringing organizations together, working on a common goal and finding a common platform where they can play and support and instead of just competing always. And that's how we'll find better solutions to achieve the global goals by 2030 or earlier or beyond, but ensuring how we leverage the innovation and technology and create a more empathetic, create a more passionate and more cooperative world that's all working together to achieve these SDGs and strengthen worldwide partnerships that allows us to take action. I think that's kind of context setting around this. With this, let's jump into questions for all panelists and let's hear from them. So I think let's start with getting to know their stories, who they are, right? So tell us, I think it's an open question for all the panelists. What do you do? And tell us about why do you do what you do? And I would love to also know if you can share your favorite sustainable development goal and why is that? So let's start with that. I think who wants to jump in? Let me pick people. Let's start with Aakanksha.
Sure, Maloo. I've been used to being one thanks to my name. Anyway.
Ladies first.
Thanks, Maloo, for hosting this panel firstly. And I think it's great to have all of the other colleagues and friends, of course, on the webinar together just to talk about SDG 17. I think the SDG that I really care about would be Zero Hunger, which is SDG 2. And I think this sort of takes me back to the time when I started my internship as part of my college program, where I actually went to the grassroots and I witnessed this young, cheerful girl, having pale eyes, and over the due course of me visiting that area, I figured that she was no more. The only reason why she could not survive was severe acute malnutrition. And hence, I think that was the driving force for me to start investing and to start working towards malnutrition, to curbing malnutrition. And I also feel that, nutrition is the backbone for all the SDGs. So it has that element to sort of, nutrition could be a part of, reaching out to all the SDGs. So yeah, I think Zero Hunger would be something that's very close to my heart.
Thanks, Aakanksha. Next, I think just jump on one by one. As Siddhant, you want to go next?
Happy to go next. Thank you, Anurag, for hosting this webinar. For me, why I do what I do is because of primarily two reasons. One is my own personal connect with mental health, and as a mental health entrepreneur, it's my desire to ensure that what I personally went through and faced in terms of the lacunae access to mental health, no one else does. And along with also that ability to support someone through that challenging time in which it can be the darkest time that one goes through, at the same time can be the most flourishing. And how can one be supported through it? I think that's the reason why I work in the mental health space. The SDG which is most closest to me is SDG 3, good health and well-being, because of the domain I work in, along with quality education, SDG 4. Because I think good health and well-being combined with quality education has the power to bring about the consequential impact across the SDGs. And that's something which I work very closely with as well.
Thanks, Ed. Next, Pratik.
So thanks, Maloo, for hosting this. It's just an honor to be with all of you guys. What I'm passionate about is what I call fifth industrial revolution. So we all know about fourth industrial revolution, where we see technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, 3D printing, etc. So how can we use those technologies to actually bend the focus back to humanity? So that's what I call the fifth industrial revolution. And the pandemic shows us that we need a quicker transition ever than before. So I've been most passionate about, and all my startups have been in the social impact space. So they pretty much use the language of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But when I started my journey, I did not know what UN SDGs were, but they've all been in the social impact space, tackling hunger or nutrition or well-being or education, and so on and so forth. The closest SDG to my heart is SDG 5, gender equality, for a simple reason that we need 50% of our population is about 50% is women, and we don't have all of them contributing to the workforce. Hardly 15 to 20% contribute, which is even lower in India. So if we want to progress and create any form of capital, be it human capital or financial capital, we need women to come to the fore as well. So we need to empower them. So that's why I think SDG 5, and I also feel to lift all other SDGs, whether it can be 3 or 4 or 6 or any of the SDGs. There's a big correlation between 5 and the other SDGs. So if you can lift 5, you can actually lift the others. So that's why 5.
Thanks, Pratik. And Mekin.
Hey, thanks, Anurag, for having me here. Good to meet all of you. So for me, the SDG that appeals most to me is number 10, the SDG around having or minimizing inequalities. I'm a deep believer in uniqueness of every human and of immense potential that each one of us possesses. I feel systems that we've built exclude a large number of people and their talent and their potential from participating in creation of a better world. And I feel like if we could just open up and enable a lot more people to pursue their potential and achieve what they want to do and express themselves, we'll probably have a world that we deserve.
Indeed, absolutely. Thanks for sharing. Rosie, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thanks so much for putting this all together, Anu, and for everyone for being here. It's great to meet everyone and hear different perspectives. Why I do what I do. So as you were saying, so Seedstars, what we're working on is supporting tech entrepreneurs across emerging markets globally through investment as well as capacity building. And my role within that is really on the partnership side, like you were saying, kind of building partnerships with corporates and governments and foundations and ODA, other ecosystem players, to really amplify the impact that we have and building kind of these shared strengths that we have. And I think the beauty of that is really that you're essentially done and making things happen with some of the most interesting people and from different backgrounds and different countries and different regions who all care very deeply about their work and supporting kind of this most inspiring stakeholder group of all, which is the entrepreneurs that we're all kind of, pulling for at the end of the day and supporting. So it's really just, I think that's the core beauty that I'd say is that really getting things done with a just absolutely inspiring group of people. And this is a real treat that I'm grateful to do. So I think if I had to pinpoint, to come back to your other part of your question, my favorite SDG, as you were mentioning, would probably be SDG 13 on climate action, because I think it's interesting as well that everyone mentions how the different SDGs are interlinked, and how certain SDGs are the backbone of things. And I think about it in the same way that we talk about new normal post COVID, but the kind of baseline of climate action, which will be kind of this, I think, next crisis that as humanity will have to face and kind of have really collective action for, which will affect all the other SDGs too, is the one that's closest to my heart. So whenever we have a partnership related to climate action, climate resilience, anything like that, I get extra excited. So yeah, that's from my side.
Thanks, Rosie. And I think Eben?
So in my case, like I never bothered about SDGs. I was like other 99% of population on Earth. I was simply enjoying my life. But when I conceived a new generation, I feel concerned about like how we are living. So basically, we were working on I was working on the goal number 9 and goal number 12 for 11 for a long time. Like goal number 9, industry innovation and infrastructure, where I was building open innovation communities and all. But later, when I came to know 2030 agenda, and that the only SDGs can through only SDGs can we achieve something, and I need to be there for lobbying for my future generation. That's the reason I am who become someone who concerned about the SDGs or all the 2030 agenda. So for me, it's pure personal intention to be with SDGs right now.
Thanks, Eben. Thanks. I think with that, it's beautiful to see this alignment all of you have with different SDGs, and the work you have done in this field. So why don't you share an example of, some of the social innovation partnerships you worked on that brings different stakeholders and connects them and has made a significant social impact. Any of those stories that you would like to highlight that has positively benefited your communities? So we can start with, let's say this time with Mekin, and then let's hear from him, and then followed by Aakanksha, Siddhant, and Rosie, and then let's continue.
Thank you. I'd want to talk about the beautiful journey we had working closely with a bunch of people in Delhi. So Udyam, the organization I run, is based out of Bangalore. And we got a call from, actually 3 WhatsApp messages one morning from 3 different people saying, Mekin, how do you teach entrepreneurial mindsets? I'm like, okay, something's up. Nobody has been interested in learning about entrepreneurial mindsets, especially in school education. So we realized something was up. The government in Delhi wanted to do something in this space. Got together and reaffirmed that the focus was not to teach how to make money or how to sell or do accounting or 4 Ps, but to enable learners to be more self-aware, to have higher grit, to be more curious, to be more creative, to experiment. And once that mission was aligned, I think we were able to work together to get a large number of people involved. So Delhi government actually put out a newspaper ad saying, hey, we're trying to do this. Whoever's interested, please apply. We got about 600 odd applications. The government shortlisted about 80. We convened a workshop together with all the 80. And out of that workshop, beautiful things came out, which then defined the framework. And from that 80, depending on people's commitment levels, we got about 8 organizations working closely for 6 months together at a stretch to make this thing happen. And since June of last year, this has been the first period that all 9th to 12th graders in Delhi government schools experience. So firstly, I think the mission itself, which is students in our schools and in our government schools experiencing empathy, self-awareness, grit as topics, besides history, geography, maths that they learn, I feel has been a massive change. And for that, this diverse team of about 8 nonprofits, 3 full-time volunteers, and about 25 people from the government, teachers, mentor teachers, pedagogues from SCRT, etc., to work together on a tight timeline, because the timeline was announced even before the project got started, was just fantastic. And I didn't think any of us imagined that we'll be able to do all that we did. So not only did we develop a curriculum, we also were able to develop projects which meant that students would get 1,000 rupees each to try something entrepreneurial. We would have entrepreneurs come into classrooms. So we've so far had over 1,500 entrepreneurs come into classrooms. And it wasn't one organization. It wasn't like the boundaries got dissolved in this project when we had this as a mission. Like, I don't even remember whose idea was it to get entrepreneurs into classrooms, right? But it was the team that came up with it, and we've had it implemented. So that journey to me proves that this piece that, oh, nonprofits don't collaborate together, or it's hard to collaborate. There are some conditions which make it easier for collaboration, like having a fixed goal, having a timeline. Those are things that actually make it much easier. And just reflecting on it, in some sense, 2030, the SDG goals offer that. They are a little too abstract and maybe a little too far away. So may not see the urgency that things like climate need, but they do offer us one unifying goal. So that's a quick story. Happy to talk more in detail.
Thanks for sharing this, Mekin. I have follow-up questions, but let me ask you all together some of those questions, and I think around the partnerships and what does it take to build these partnerships. So let's wait for that. But meanwhile, let's hear from others on their stories of impact.
I'll pitch in. So, I mean, as I told everyone, most of my work has been focused towards malnutrition. And this sort of takes me back to one of my previous roles where I had this program to work with self-help group women in a small town in the state of Rajasthan, which was called Banswara. What we done is we basically got the government together, we got the donors together, and of course the technical people together to sort of build a very small manufacturing units for the women to run. So, which was sort of affiliated by the government bodies also to sort of, ensure that there is maintenance of supply chain. And of course, this also gave them, the women, the benefit and also the confidence to sort of grow as women entrepreneurs. So, I mean, all in all in the program, not that we only established something which would generate revenue for these women and their families. It was a collaboration between the panchayat, which is the local governance in a village, the state government, the donors, as well as the body that I was working with. And of course the private sector, because they were the ones to sort of help us with the trainings and stuff. I think these are the kind of collaborations where we do see the different bodies, like the private sector, the public sector, the development sectors, all of them, they come together to, for the greater good. And as a this model was only a very small pilot, but because this was a successful model, this was then replicated in 2-3 other states, and it's currently ongoing, so which still makes me proud. Yeah,
nice.
That's from my side.
That is beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Next, let's hear from Siddhant.
Yeah, happy to. So I'll pick from what Mekin shared earlier in terms of in case there is a shared vision and a goal, partnership becomes a lot more smoother, and people are able to keep their personal self-interest aside for a larger objective, which keeps them moving ahead. One of the things which is very close to what we've been able to do is work with urban homelessness in Delhi. We partner with one of India's largest civil society organizations to build a mental health program for urban homeless. For the longest time, we perceived the homeless members as the ones who are destitute and have no abilities to perform and are very comfortable in being provided things for free. That's the general attitude the public happens to have about homeless. And the model of providing care or supporting the homeless has been provide them shelter, food, and that's all. The idea that we went in with was how can we also look at their years of trauma that each of them has went through and look at individuals with their own positive strength that they each has and strengthen those. While we were working in Delhi and the language again was a huge barrier, but with the larger vision and a mission of supporting urban homelessness through mental health as a core attribute is something which was beautiful to see. What that led to the formation of was that the mental health bill, which was passed in 2017 by the government of India and had not been implemented in the state of Delhi for almost 18 months until then. A case which came in through the homeless shelter that we used to work with, it led to the implementation at the state level. And the court got involved and the entire system got into a rapid action in which the state mental health agency was formed in a week's time with that person who wanted access to mental health services getting their rights. That's one core example of how partnerships and collaboration can lead to such huge systemic change, not just for a single beneficiary, for even people to come way beyond. The other bit is in terms of even which Mekin is a part of a Founders versus COVID-19 initiative, and something in which we have built as a collaborative within that of COVID response. It's a collaboration of impact first mental health organizations which are working towards providing psychosocial support to people at the margins. Now we have an active collective base of 21 organizations and almost 750 volunteers working with us. People from the mental health professional landscape, and each of them has come to almost cumulative more than 100,000 hours in a month of providing pro bono counseling. And the work we've been able to do along with the support from the government has been, I think, the most fulfilling work I've done in my life over the past 5 years as an entrepreneur, in terms of really reaching to the people who are at the most vulnerable spectrum and supporting them not through just their basic needs, but also how the mental health intertwines with the physical needs.
Thanks, Sid. Thanks for sharing. I'll ask follow-up questions later on. Let's hear from others. Rosie, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I think my favorite, let's say, types or examples of social innovation partnerships are ones that combine, I think, the local, regional, and global levels of partnership, as well as a kind of sector-specific angle to it. So one example which I really like in that kind of ticks all those boxes, let's say, is a partnership that we were running with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So they were looking for startups all across sub-Saharan Africa that were innovating solutions in the vaccine delivery and malaria delivery kind of supply chain space. So it was a partnership really around working with a lot of organizations in these different countries at a very kind of ecosystem level to try to source and really shortlist a bunch of these really fascinating ventures that would be a good fit for the Gates Foundation to then work further with, and who we were then supporting, and who had cash investments to the Gates Foundation as well then. And we selected MedSaf from Nigeria, which is a startup they work in, kind of platform for counterfeit, kind of combating counterfeit medicine, who's run by Vivian, who's just a force of nature. And they, we were able to have everyone together at our global summit last year, and to really showcase, first of all, the partnership and kind of how it came together, as well as the entrepreneurs who were shortlisted. And it was just a very inspiring group of people and entrepreneurs that got selected. And was one of my, I think, favorites kind of examples of collaboration. It just tied everything together really, really nicely, and as it was a very impactful solution that she has, that they're now able to work together to really scale this up. So yeah, that's, I think, from our side. There's a bunch more, but just in the interest of time, I'll keep it to that one.
Thanks, Rosie. Eben?
So in my case, like I'm very happy that I'm supporting all the 17 SDGs because
Yeah.
when as I'm part of the SDG Incubator, so each startups come with their own SDG goal or their innovation which supports
Mhm.
an SDG, like
Right.
a goal. So we have startup who works on the goal number 1 and 2, no poverty and zero hunger, no food waste, who serves around like 10 million people across India, 23 cities. The company name is No Food Waste, and they are creating amazing impact. And secondly, if you take, we have a company called uh, uh, Solavio Labs. They do solar panel cleaning robots, and they are into good energy, like sustainable communities and all. And if you take each of the startups, they do their own innovations and they partner with other startups to create more bigger impact. So if and we recently collaborated with a radio station, Ratnavani R 90.8, where they give the education and work on all the SDGs and give decoding the SDGs to the local communities, and that was another good way that we did the partnership recently. And I believe like as being a umbrella for all the 17
Yours.
SDGs, UN
Right.
SDGs, so we try to connect like facilitate the partnership between the corporate startups and all, and like all
You're kind of
catalysts.
amplifying, right?
Yeah,
Catalyzing and amplifying
yeah,
everyone's impact.
yes,
Brilliant.
yes.
No, thanks.
Okay.
I've been Pratik. I think you have a lot to share around when it comes to stories of impact. Anything you would like to highlight?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So first of all, I loved hearing all these amazing impact stories by everybody. So what we are, I'll just give you two quick examples to show how we've brought different people together and created impact. So what we do is what I call omni-win solutions by bringing in four silos together. So one is the Fortune 500 company silo. The second is the impact investors, all the ultra high net worth uh, or celebrity community. Then the third sector is social entrepreneurs, which most of us are. And the fourth is the government. So I don't know if you guys have heard of Mission Pani, which is a large campaign run by Harpik from RB. So which is being stewarded by Amitabh Bachchan. So we are the anchors to that campaign where we brought in a brand like an RB or a Harpik, which is again a Fortune 500 brand. And then we brought in, we work closely with the government, and then we brought a lot of impact investors. And then we are working with an NGO called Water for People on the ground. So we mobilize marketing budgets or CSR budgets towards social enterprises, and that's what we call a good exchange. And then the government supports us, and then there's a impact investor supporting us to lift the campaign. So basically we're building rainwater harvesting facilities and raising awareness around water. So that's a campaign centered around SDG 6. Another campaign which recently we did, that's not in India, by the way. This one is India, which I told you. The second one is, I don't know if you guys know about Some Good News from John Krasinski. So it's episode 5 was actually anchored by us, where we helped, where we brought in PepsiCo. So we mobilized $5 million from PepsiCo's budget towards Restaurant Welfare Association in the United States. And we had a lot of impact. I mean, you already know John Krasinski is a celebrity. So we brought like these 4 stakeholders together to actually create an omni-win campaign, which basically is a win-win-win for everybody in the end. And in the end, you know, the people of the world actually get lifted because the end goal is to lift people. So bringing all those 4 together to create impact stories.
This is great, Pratik. I think it's so inspiring to listen to everyone's story and, you know, from the frame they come from and the fields they come from. I think the follow-up question for all of you would be, you know, what do you look for when you are starting these partnership engagements? What do you ask yourself when building a partnership strategy, whether it's working with government? How does the partnership look to start with any multilateral organization like a UN or World Bank or a government organization or with a corporate? So I think if any one of you would like to throw some lights as a follow-up, around the partnerships you have built and how do you start will be super, super helpful for the audience. And I think another thing I would add here is in some of these answers, this may also come. When do you know that, that we are ready for this partnership, and do you proactively reach out, or do you wait for the corporate or the government to come to you? How does it work? And how does this being proactive show you as your strength or as your weakness in the community when you are bringing everyone together? So I know it's a lot of questions I have asked, but I know some of you can touch on many of these aspects in your stories. So yeah, who wants to start?
I think, Anurag, something that's very important and it's an imperative when anyone's looking for partnerships, and at least that's what's worked for, at least on my end, is attitude. The compassion that the other person or the other partner has towards the similar cause. I think that is the driving force. Rest can be managed, but if you don't have the attitude to sort of achieve if you don't feel for the cause, I think even if you invest a lot, practically nothing would happen on ground. At least that's been my practical experience. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are other elements to it.
Yeah, I think for me, like in some sense, alignment of objective and just a few core values has been important. That why are the partners doing it? There have been cases where, so like the Delhi example, where we talked about learning entrepreneurial mindsets and students and learners actually learning aspects like grit and self-awareness versus learning profit and loss and learning money and or showcasing that, hey, here is a startup venture and here is so I think having alignment that this is what all of us are working towards helped very early on in ensuring that the right set of partners were involved. I've been in partnership conversations where the objectives have been different or divergent. Like there are people who come and say that, hey, Mekin, we know what you do and this is all great, but can you also help some of these incubators that we have and get them started and stuff? I'm happy to have that conversation from a personal capacity, but Udyam's mission is fairly simple. We want to work with young learners. And I feel like too much of scope creep just means that there may not be meaning and value added from partners. So shared mission and basically the objective being aligned and a few core values being aligned, I have found to be important.
I think Mekin and Aakanksha have covered pretty much what are the prerequisites for going to a partnership. I'll touch upon the second question that you had in terms of the proactiveness and the responsiveness. I think in case there has been an alignment both in terms of values and objectives, I've never held back and never really waited for how that would come across as a weakness or a sign of desperation. I think in case there's a trust involved, there's an alignment in the core values and the objective involved, it really doesn't matter who takes and more proactive research. It's more about the larger thing that you are here to do together and making that possible.
So in my case, what I felt along with Aakanksha, Siddham, Mekin, the same thing, but how much more impact we can create together will be another aspect which I look into.
Amplification.
So,
great. Anything else? Any different? Anything?
Yeah, I'll just give you a small example of what proactiveness can do to you. So when we were going to Davos, so we actually got to know that we'll be sponsoring the SDG 17 lounge. And this was December, by the way. And I was with Aakanksha in Turkey. It was at the end of December. We were just having fun in Cappadocia. And, in just a span of 12 days, I was very proactive in reaching out to brands. It just started with one brand, RB. And in the end, when finally Davos happened around 20th, we had 7 brands, including like 3 Fortune 100s and then a lot of startups, just because we were very proactive in reaching out. And a lot of brands reached out to us. Just to Mekin's point, a lot of brands actually now come to us and tell us that we want to work with you because of the stuff you're doing is great, etc., etc. But because if you are very proactive, the amplification of impact can be really humongous. So if you're thinking you'll be impacting 1 million, if you bring 5 more people to the table, it might just go to 10 million. So easier to actually scale.
Absolutely. Rosie, anything different you have to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's been covered, in terms of the kind of shared values as a starting point. I think just to maybe add on to that slightly, I think as a kind of next step on that, what's good to really start out with as a basis is just clearly defining what are your different strengths, what are you really good at, what are we really good at, where do we fit, and then from there defining very concretely KPIs, expectations, and just communicating and being transparent and honest about the kind of follow up from there, so that you're on the same framework, even if you have that foundation level base of shared kind of values and general objectives. And then I think just to add on to your proactivity question, I think, I mean, Seedstars has been kind of since day one very aggressive on the partnerships front. So I think go out there, find synergies, find opportunities, recognize you're stronger together. And I think we have a great kind of African proverb that we reference a lot, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I'd say don't wait.
Absolutely. No, this is really, really fantastic. I think my next follow-up question to all of you will be something on these lines. This looks great when partnership works out, but there are also times when we struggle, and to sustain and make sure those partnerships continue, it's painful. It's not easy all the time. So I would love to hear some of those stories of, challenges and the pain points it brings to you and the difficulties in sustaining them, and how do you overcome them? Any stories around that would be great for us to know.
So let me start with.
Okay.
So probably I never wanted to mention the name of brands or let it be anonymous. But when it failed, what we do when the partnerships or the goals of partnerships fail, as an organization we proactively take up, because the impact is for some when we do a partnership, there will be an anticipated impact on the community. So when the partnership fail, maybe the other organization back out, the entire responsibility we used to take up, and proactively we wanted to complete the project. So that's the way that we work when the partnership fails.
I think I agree completely. I think what I would love, I'm more interested in listening, any story, any specific examples that you could highlight when it really failed and it didn't work out, or it really put you in a difficult situation. But so if you can highlight some of those stories and feel comfortable in doing that.
Okay. Probably so. If you ask for a specific story, there is no such kind of specific story as of now. But
anyone else?
I think the first one that's coming to my mind may not be an exact fit to your question. Is my attempt and then our attempts at getting a bunch of social entrepreneurs who work in the space of learning and education in Bangalore to meet on a regular basis, without an agenda. So I set up a meeting which is actually called No Agenda Catch Up.
Monthly, I do a lot.
Monthly, 7 of us, but these are all entrepreneurs who are running, in some cases, very large social enterprises. And I'd say we've struggled to have attendance. There have been, I think now for the last 4 months, none of us have even responded that are we attending or not, which means as in the meetings aren't happening for the last 4 months. And prior to that, there would be typically 2 of us who would show up, and then there may be a third, and there may not be a third, and we wouldn't. So I think it's a story of failure where we've tried, or some of us have tried, but I don't think everyone, including myself, have cared deeply enough to make this work, which is where the previous answer about having an agenda or a mission makes it much, much easier.
Right.
I think informal conversations, catching up, hanging out, I think a lot of us do a lot of that. But for entrepreneurs to be able to make time consistently just feels really, really hard.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's great that you brought that up, because this is something very common thing you will observe in different communities. There are definitely no agenda meetups, and obviously there was full on agenda meetups too. And sometimes I've seen it also worked well, but could of examples around failures, and it didn't work because there was really no agenda and people really lacked interest. Anything else anyone has before I jump on other questions?
A quick instance which I can share.
Yes, Sid. Yes.
We're working in the low-income community in Old Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea for us was that how can we bring in the community members together to engage with the topic of mental health. I think the partnership and a collaboration failed there because we went in with a solution in mind rather than listening to the users in the segment that we were trying to cater to. I think that disconnect is something which made this partnership not really work out. And it's been learning for us in terms of how co-creation and stakeholdership, even though might be slow and might be painstaking to begin with, is a necessity when working with such community-led initiatives.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I think.
Maloo, I'll just add a very small instance here, and it's not a failure, but definitely a challenge that we feel. So now being moved to the private sector and trying to still work on SDGs, I think collaboration is sometimes that becomes very critical, because a lot of the development bodies and a lot of the government bodies, they do not look at you from a very positive lens. They basically think that there is something that the corporate really has some vested interest. Exactly, but which again is not true. But these are the challenges that I've actually seen across South Asia, while trying to work with different governments, different partners, different development bodies. And I think if we try change the mindset, the private sector has a lot to contribute to get to where we want to be in terms of SDGs.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think I know we are running out of time, but I'm going to still continue asking, and we'll see if we can extend it by a couple of minutes. And there are a lot of questions coming from audience too, and I've already received many questions from audience. I will just request panelists also, if you can answer some of the questions that are directed for you, that you can directly answer on the chat to them. But meanwhile, I want to also touch base on the current COVID situation, and how do we look at the partnership from a new lens in a post-COVID world? How does it really change from old normal and the new normal? Any new innovative models of partnership are coming around? Have you been observing different sort of collaborations that are happening that can increase the scope of partnerships in the world we are eventually getting into? How is it different? How does it look different from the present situation? And so I think that's one question. Who wants to jump in? Not everyone has to answer, but if you have some insights, will be great for audience to know.
I can talk about a couple of initiatives I've been involved in.
Yes.
One is the Startup versus COVID initiative, where now there are about 1,300 odd people working together, agenda-less across projects. The most successful project is led by 4 people who hadn't met before this movement started. I think what you see there is just the desire to do this together, finding voluntary time beyond work hours, despite home pressures, despite the lockdown. So people just rising above and dissolving boundaries and just doing this. Another one that I've been involved in is the ACT grants team, where a whole bunch of VCs in India have come together, raised money for philanthropic purposes, and have a team of over 100 volunteers to do research, to evaluate the proposals coming in. So it's going through as much diligence, or probably more diligence, than the VC proposals typically go through. And like these teams of over 100 people have been now at it for over 4 weeks, 7 days a week, without a stop. So again, VCs who typically compete for the same set of deals are sitting
Right.
together and debating and discussing and trying to figure out how do you make something work, how do you help something scale, and instead of thinking about what might be the long-term returns, they're thinking about what would stem this challenge right now in a very philanthropic fashion. So I think purposes and missions definitely bring a lot out of people together. Almost all of this has happened virtually. Nobody's met physically, and despite how much I might like being in the presence of another human being and the energy that you receive, but the fact that this is all possible is just paving a path for what may happen.
So
yeah, I think
this is beautiful. Yes, Rosie. Go
yeah,
ahead.
just to add on to that, I mean, I think what kind of in that same vein, what's been really inspiring for us has been to really just see how kind of virtual and just leveraging some of the tech partners that we have can really elevate and amplify what we're working on to such a huge degree. I mean, we recently ran an Africa versus virus kind of ideathon with the African Development Bank and many other partners, and there were 25,000 participants from over 120 countries, because you could have people joining, the diaspora joining from all over the world who could work across borders for a few days straight, and the amount of kind of activity and the level at which you could elevate this work was really astonishing, just to be able to kind of see how that was possible. So I hope that even when we go back to being able to travel and fly around, I hope we find a mix between of course using that face-to-face time, which is hard to replace, and those kind of personal relationships, but still capitalizing on these abilities that we do have and we don't always necessarily capitalize on as much as we could in favor of kind of on-site things. So that's been really inspiring on my end.
So I love to share two of the initiatives which just emerged out of COVID. So one is we have actually ended up creating a blockchain platform actually to ensure transparency and accountability in the social giving space or donations. So we say we are trying to make social giving a habit. So what I observed, around COVID, the space was so crowded when it came to raising money. Like, it was so crowded, it was really hard for a lot of not-for-profits who were really creating impactful work and really working with migrant workers, etc., to raise money. So we designed this blockchain platform where you can, through an app, actually track all your donations, until it reaches the last mile consumer or the beneficiary. You can actually track it. So if you donate $100, you can even track where that $1 out of the 100 went, and did it actually reach the end beneficiary. And we're running a couple of initiatives here, one in India, one in the US, and we've seen a jump in terms of donors coming in and donating. And by the way, when I talk about donors, it's middle class people. It's not even people who are philanthropists. So the social giving space is which is estimated to reach $1 trillion. It's about $600 billion, but we just look at Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or the Tatas, etc. But it's mostly people who are in the middle class segment also to come and donate and to make social giving a habit. So that's one of the initiatives they're running. The second, Anurag, you already know, which I was telling you about, Dream Tank. So we just launched a global youth movement. It's a 1 billion youth movement. We started, we're hosting the first hackathon, and we're bringing in, we want to bring in 1 billion youth together across the world, and host hackathons to bring the youth together to co-create solutions. So just to Mekin's point, the pandemic has also brought us together to create, to solve problems, different sort of problem, not just COVID, but other problems as well. So we have kind of created this platform, hosting our first hackathon with Pitbull. So that's pretty cool as well.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome, everyone. I know we are almost reaching the time. What I will do is, instead of me asking more questions, let me look some of the questions that has come from the audience here, and some of them already been answered. But let me pick up. So we have a question from Stuti Gupta. Where can one learn more about the partnerships and participating organizations for SDGs in India? Anyone wants to jump on that? how do they learn more about SDG-based activities and partnerships in India?
I think Abin is the person to answer that.
I'll put you in touch with Eben. We have a question from Chandrakanta. With decentralization of economy post-COVID, a lot of things are to change. Do you agree with me? Okay. You're just asking our opinions. Maybe, may not be. There is a question from Girish Sampath. Despite partnerships being highly talked about seldom, does it really materialize in practice? What are the successful building blocks of every successful partnership? I think this has been really answered by the panelist.
Anurag, if I could add a few points here.
Sure, Sid, please.
Question. I think three values which I think are fundamental to any partnership working well is transparency, humility to believe that you alone can't address this problem and they need to collaborate, and extending the liberty to each other and as partners to also fail. Because when you go on and with this such a mission critical teams, you will have failures on a daily basis and also on a project level basis. So extending the liberty to the team and as yourself as well to fail. I think all of these factors are very critical to having the team which works well together in a collaborative manner.
This is absolutely beautiful. I have a lot of questions and so the audience have. I wish we had like 2 hours, 3 hours of time and this conversation can go really long. But unfortunately, we're running out of time. So just last one question, I think. We've been talking about, partnerships, and I hope we find different ways to engage with each other. So if I have to put all you on spot right now and ask you to figure out, after listening to each other's stories a little bit and the work you've been doing, how would you get to collaborate and partner with each other? Why don't you quickly come up with an example? And you can't really right now, talk to each other a lot, but still think about some creative ways. How do you see engaging with each other and why do you think that will work? And yeah, anyone can.
Anurag, the best example, the webinar, the AIC Raise and Seedstars started partnership and creating background of innovation and startups and emerging economies and even the greater.
Yeah, webinar was a beginning. What are the other ideas, everyone else?
And even Anurag, we are planning to work together on Dream Tech. That also happened after the webinar. And by the way, I don't think if Mekin knows about it, but I've been going back and forth with Madan for a long time now. He's a very good friend. He's one of his co-founders at Game. So we are also, so it's like, all of us coming together. And I think a lot of partnerships will emerge after the webinar.
Yeah.
Inshallah, hope so. Anyone has any creative ideas that has not been done or explored yet?
Oh, I'd love to explore in Eben's incubator what might be things tailored towards or targeting goal 10 or goal 4 about education.
Lovely.
Perfect. We will take it up for the webinar.
Yeah.
Who else wants to jump in and willing to explore?
Sure. Anurag and Rosie would love to know more about Seedstars and how we can work together in terms of taking the mental health support way beyond India and making an international priority.
Yes, would love to. Yes.
I think we have with that. I think we've almost reached 60 minutes, 6:02 to 7:02. Any last minute thoughts and advice or points that you want to tell your audience before we sign off from this webinar?
Let's everyone in the webinar, it almost 84 people at the peak, and let everyone join together and catalyze, bring more partnerships to the table. We are I believe that all the panelists and moderator is open for the collaborations. So ping us after the webinar, because that will be the biggest partnership raise after this session.
Sure, for sure.
Let this be the start of many new partnerships.
May the 9th be with you, if not 4th.
Second that motion.
Partnerships are hard, but that's the reason to actually pursue them.
Indeed.
They also are the DNA I mean, they literally are the DNA of what we all do. So if we don't have partnerships, nothing would be so successful.
Yeah.
So true.
Just adding more.
Yeah, collaborative, not competitive.
The partnerships and adaptiveness is what is going to define the startups of the future.
Partnerships and adaptiveness. I wish I could like go on and really like talk about startups and entrepreneurship and in the post-COVID, how does it look? But everyone, I really, really appreciate your time as a panelist and all the audience who have joined this webinar today. So thank you everyone for joining, and please stay in touch. We have shared our email IDs on the chat with all of you. You can also reach out to me if you want any specific connection in the community or with any of the panelists here. But thank you once again for joining, and looking forward to see some of these partnerships that may come out. And if you want to connect with any partners and if we can help, don't hesitate to reach out. Once again, have a beautiful evening and enjoy your weekend. Stay safe and stay healthy, everyone.
Yeah, stay safe, everyone. Have a good weekend.
And thank you,
So,
panelists.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. So for the attendees, we will have SDG Saturdays every week. And next week, we will be coming with Rajiv Gulati, sir, of UN Technology Innovation Labs India, because for UN, there is 5 innovation labs and 1 is in India. And we will be bringing Rajiv Gulati next week, Saturday, 6 p.m.
Lovely.
See you again.
Thanks, Evan, for hosting and supporting through AIC Raise. And look forward to attending the next SDG Saturday then.
See you. Signing off.
Thank you, everyone.
Ciao. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.